second meeting of the Board of Selectmen. Would everybody please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The following meeting is being recorded and broadcast through our local cable access channels on Comcast and Verizon Fios. A recording of this meeting will be available for viewing on our town's website, tyngsboroughma.gov, after instruction from the State Fire Marshal and the Tyngsborough Fire Chief. In the event of an emergency, there is an exit to my left and directly across from me along the back wall. May I ask the Selectmen and the administration to introduce themselves, starting from my left?
Good evening, Steve Nocco.
Good evening, Corey Lambert.
Good evening, Bill Gramer.
Good evening, Rick Rowe.
Greetings, Kurt Bellavance, Town Administrator.
Good evening, Matt Hanson, Assistant Town Administrator.
Hello, Teresa Gay, Administrative Assistant.
Thank you. And unfortunately, Selectman Jackson cannot be with us this evening. So I'll ask Selectman Gramer to please read the agenda.
Sure, thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have no meeting minutes tonight. Under new business, we have a request by the Tyngsborough Water District for extension of well testing. We have a request for Team Connor Bike-a-thon, and a request for special permit extension for Blue Wave Solar at 50 Westford Road. We have appointments of reserve officers, a right of first refusal at Maple Ridge, request for comment from the planning board, and an order of street layout acceptance and taking for Muscuppick Trail. Under old business, we have Freedom Alley Shooting Sports, special permit decision to be reviewed, Lakeview Avenue surplus land, review of the budget, and vote and sign on our warrant. We have citizens and business time, correspondence, review of weekly warrants, town administrator's report, selectmen's reports, and there will be no executive session this evening.
Thank you very much. So first on the agenda, we have a request from the Tyngsborough Water District seeking extension for well testing. And with us, we have a commissioner from the Water District, Warren Allgrove. Mr. Allgrove, welcome.
Thank you very much. And thanks for having me tonight so we can move on with our request. Little background, this is for the Tyngsborough Water District, which is, as you know, in the west, basically mostly the west side of town. And back in 13, we came in and talked to the water board. We talked to the Board of Selectmen about the property down near the river, probably most familiar with everybody where the airplanes wanted to fly. So what we had done was we had an engineering firm go out and find what they considered the best possible place to put a well for the town. And they came up with the area down there by the river. And so we came in and back in March of 13 and got a permit or permission from the Board of Selectmen. We did have to get permits, of course, and to drill some test wells. Now, when you do the test wells, the first test wells are not, they're not large, they're probably a 4-inch to a 6-inch pipe in the ground, goes down approximately 60 feet. And we pull the water out, we put 3 wells in, we pulled the water out of there, and we test the water to see if the water has any problems. And actually, the water came out to be quite good. So, knowing that if you think of a plume of water underground, that's actually where the plume ends. So you have all the reserve behind you, and it's flowing towards the river. So at this point, the next thing we do is the engineers go in there and they pump those wells for 4 to 7 days to see how much water is going to come out of them and if it can sustain the pumping. And also to see if it draws anything it shouldn't draw, which we really don't expect. At the same time that happens, we have to monitor wells approximately within a half-mile area, depending on what the DEP requests. And those wells are monitored to see what the drop is in the wells. And those are personal wells, any kind of wells we can get a hold of. I mean, if there weren't any, you would have to probably drill some, but there's enough wells in the area, we feel we'll be able to go to people's homes and ask if they want to help. If they don't, we move on. But, so this request is actually a continuation of the agreement that we have. It doesn't really change anything. We're not talking about anything other than going on the next step of a test. And we just, I'm asking for a 2-year extension. And in 2 years, it's not like we're gonna be down there for 2 years, but you will do work, and then it'll be 3 months before you get the results back, and then you go to the next step. And, you know, that's actually what takes so long. It's not like we're down there for 2 years with a pump and we walk away and just see how it goes. We're actually, by the time we put this out for bid, you know, you lose 3 months there, and we gotta get this done by the end of the summer. Then all the information has to go to the, you know, the engineers take all that information, and it goes to DEP, and you know, if you're lucky, I mean, the whole process can actually take up to 20 years. And we're, you know, and you're watching, we're from 13 to now, and we've only got basically the first step done. And that's because you have to go out and find the best places and do quite a bit of engineering before you even, you know, drive the first hole in the ground. And that's basically where we're at. So the next step is can we pull the number of gallons out of there that would be a reasonable amount to go forward and actually spend the money putting the wells in. And then after that, we'll be back. If that's true, then we'll be back to see what the next step that we can work out with the town. And if maybe, you know, it's up to the board whether they want to continue on after that. It's actually, you know, if you don't want to continue on now, it'll stop. So it's, that's where we're at. I mean, obviously, water helps the town and, you know, the people that need it for their homes. But I mean, as the town is growing, and we seem to be going through a little burst in Tyngsborough right now, we're gonna need more water. And our water supply comes from Lowell and Nashua at this point. And the cost of buying water is going up, and if it's in the ground and we can pump it ourselves, hopefully we can continue to have enough water, because there's not a restriction between the three. There really wouldn't be a restriction on water in the sense of how much can you get. And it would certainly benefit the town, but, you know, there's a lot of things to consider. We did have, because it's been some time, I don't know, when we were concerned about the farm and their water source and whatnot, that was addressed, and that was addressed by DEP, and they felt that there was no concern. So, but again, that's what this test is about, and I'm sure that one of their wells will be one of the ones that are monitored. So I'm asking for a 2-year extension, and it's not really, other than the fact that we're gonna be down there pulling the water out of the ground. There's not gonna be any more drilling. There's not gonna be any taking of any trees down or anything like that. It'll strictly be some guys down there setting up pumps and pumping the water out and monitoring it. It's actually pretty straightforward.
Thank you. One question I have is, when they pump the wells, where do they pump that water to?
It'll go into the river.
Okay, thank you. Questions from the board?
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Mr. Allgrove, I would like to thank you for coming this evening and providing that update for us. I'm the individual who, a week ago, wasn't ready to move forward. I felt it was important for you to come and explain what the status of the project was, so that not only the board could understand, but the residents could listen to TV. I thank you very much for it. You certainly clarified in my mind as to what we've done and where we're going, and I appreciate that very much. I'm supportive of your project.
Thank you.
Questions?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Thank you, Warren. Just a question about the expenses part of your testing process. Could you just walk through how that's paid for, and how that's funded?
Oh, yeah,
The
certainly.
costs to do this testing?
It's about $30,000 for this test, and it's paid for by the water district. It's just part of, we started a budget because even, no matter how you cut it, if this goes forward or this doesn't go forward, the money, this project would be about $2 million by the time we got water out to the road. So this part of it is about a $30,000 hit, and it may be a little more now because that was an estimate given a year ago, and it just seems that a 20% increase just happens by mistake. So this will be $30,000. The water district is the one that pays for it completely. Basically, the users, the water district users pay for it. No money comes from the town or through taxes or anything like that.
Okay. And the first tests are positive?
Well, so the first test was positive, and the reason that this is important is that, you know, we're buying water from other sources, and we have to have two sources of water, because if something happened to one, you'd have 1,000 people without water. So it's important that we have two sources, but that means that we're paying two companies to do it, and we could be doing it ourselves. And we're looking down the road I mean, I haven't seen water go down, and every time, when you see something like Flint that happened, I mean, that's almost, it's even hard to believe that happened, because there's so many tests and we're required to do more testing all the time. And so we have to start looking at how can you keep the cost of water in check so it's reasonable. And this is probably the only step that you can do that's a major step, is the water is in the ground in Tyngsborough, and we can get it out. If the water is good water for us, it'll need minimal refining, I guess you could say. And then that way that we can keep the water cost in check. But when you see more building going on in the cities, and that water, they have less and less water to offer, and that's what you do. If something's scarce, they just charge more. So we're trying to beat that. And like I said, this is, when we started this project, we were told flat out, it's a 20-year project, and I said, you're crazy, how can this take 20 years? Well, here we are 3 years later, and we've just got 3 holes in the ground 60 feet deep. I mean, it's just that the process is slow for public water supply, so that you don't have those crazy things happen like we all read about.
Thank you.
That brought up a question for me. So how much water does the Tyngsborough Water District purchase each year?
Well, the numbers are all over the place, but your daily use of water is 350 to 450 gallons, depending. If we have a good rainy month, it's 350 a day. If you have a really dry season, it'll pop up to 560,000 gallons, and a little higher sometimes. But those are pretty much the average. We figure
And the cost to purchase is how much?
that's all over the place too, and really, I don't have that on me.
You know,
But that's
Any roughly idea of the annual bill you have to Lowell and Pennachuck? Is it still Pennachuck?
Yeah,
Nashville?
well, no, but we still call it Pennachuck.
Yeah.
I don't think that $60,000 a month for us would be off the wall.
So where you say it's $2 million to get it to the system, that money gets recovered in a short period of years?
Not really, because the cost of running it is, the cost of the testing of the water now, the electricity, I mean, for the people that are on the west side and the east side of town, the pumping station down there, when they pay their bill, the pumping station is about, the electric bill is about $5,000 a month, which doesn't happen to the other people in town because we have the tank, and it's just tank pressure. There are still very few houses, but maybe 10 houses that have a pump to boost the pressure since the new tank was put in. But that's only as the tank goes down.
Okay.
So,
So it's not really about cost as it is to guarantee that you'll always have a supply?
absolutely. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, the cost is, water cost is never going to get down. It's going to only go up, and it's just because of the type of safety nets that are in place. I mean, a lot of people, I mean, if you got 1,000 homes, and, you know, you got an average of, I don't know, what, 3 to 4 people a home, I mean, all those people are using the water. So, you know, we're on it all the time. There's a lot of testing done, and every time something, as the chemists come up with better ways to do the testing or test for things that you didn't test before, and that happens, and it just adds and adds, and we'll keep going.
Okay.
And that's just, but it's important. I mean, how do you not do that? I mean, we all watched what happened in Flint, Michigan. I mean, that was insane.
Yes.
And so, and again, I say, I don't know how that could have possibly happened, because there's so much testing going on in so many spots. I mean, we do so many homes and businesses that, and of course, we do the schools, so, and you're on it. So, it
Yeah.
just seems kind of crazy to me, but I wasn't there,
Yeah,
thank God.
right. I wouldn't want that situation. Any further questions from the board? Okay, we'll entertain a motion then.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to make a motion to extend the Tyngsborough Water District's agreement for testing for potential well on the Hunter Norton property for a period of 2 years.
Second?
Further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Oppose, abstain, and that carries 4-0. Thank you, Mr. Allgrove.
Thank you very much for your time, and I appreciate the vote.
Thank you. Next, we have a request from Team Connor Bikeathon. Mr. Administrator?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Last year, the Connor, the Team Connor group came before the town through the Connor Flanagan Foundation to do a bike race. They do 2 lengths, one at 40 miles and one at 10 miles. What they do is they ride around, they raise money for Connor Flanagan through this bike race. They drive partially in Tyngsborough as well as over to Westford and I believe Groton as well. So they did that last year. It was pretty successful. So they're hoping to do that again this year. They've come before the board to request that they're allowed to use the streets in order to accomplish this race. I did meet with the police chief to talk to him. We do have detail police officers out there to assist them. I did talk to the chief, and they are paid through the Connor Flanagan Foundation, so there's no cost to the town. So they're seeking to do this again this year.
Thank you, Mr. Administrator. So just a little bit of the Connor Flanagan Charitable Foundation is it's a pretty special group. You know, it originally started out to help the Flanagan family, but it's really evolved into a charitable organization that helps families all over our state and beyond. He's an amazing young man, an amazing family, and he's been recognized at many different public events throughout the state, helped an awful lot of people, and something that we can really be proud of to have the Flanagan Foundation in Tyngsborough. And I'm in full support. Beth Craig does a lot of work with charitable groups in town, and this is just another demonstration of what she does, and I'm full support of this request. Anyone else on the board?
Mr. Chair, so this is second annual bikeathon?
Yes.
Is it the second? It's at least the second. I don't know if it was even before that, but at least the second.
And per the chief, everything went well last year for
Yes.
this part of Tyngsborough. Okay.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to make a motion to grant the request of the Team Connor for their bike-a-thon, beginning and ending at the Tyngsborough Elementary School in use of the town roadways.
Second?
Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Oppose, abstain, and that carries 4-0. Thank you. Next, we have a request for a special permit extension for Blue Wave Solar. Mr. Administrator, I know you've been in touch with Blue Wave, and they apologize for not being here, and again, you followed up with some more phone calls because you had some questions, and they didn't return those calls, and I don't see them here tonight, this evening. So I can imagine we can just move on to the next agenda item. Is that
I
correct?
think that sounds like a good idea.
Okay, thank you. Actually, this one will be for the police chief, who is just outside the room for a minute, so why don't we wait for him to come back, and we can move on to right of first refusal for Maple Ridge. Oh, all right, we'll go back, since Selectman Lambert went and
Apologize.
no problem at all. We're just moving along very quickly. Welcome, Chief. Chief Howe is with us this evening, and your agenda item is appointments for reserve officers, so the floor is yours.
Yes, thank you. I know you have a letter in front of you. It's 3 officers who you appointed in the fall as special officers. We have some openings as a result of some people leaving, as well as a recent hire from the reserve staff. And so the reserve program, as you know, is an important aspect of our operation. It takes a long time to get them to a certain point where they can actually take over and fill cruiser shifts. It does result in cost savings to us on a yearly basis. It's also the pool from which we draw full-time patrol officers down the road. So it's important that we keep the program strong. We're looking at hiring somebody, we're starting them today. We're looking at probably 6 months down the road before they're actually ready to be in a cruiser. So looking to maintain that program, maintain a certain complement. These 3 officers that you have in front of you have done a good job, have been recommended by my staff, and I'm looking for them to be appointed as reserve officers today.
Also, Chief, I see that there's another appointment for special.
Yes, I apologize, I don't have those notes in front of me. I know you have the letter. This is a retired Lowell captain who recently retired in good standing. I received a letter of support from the superintendent, Billy Taylor, over in Lowell as well. Again, this is same reason I came in front of you last fall, asking for additional special officers. We have a lot of extra work in town now, detail work with sewer work, et cetera. There's a lot of manufacturing things going on, growth in town. We want to keep as many details in town as possible. There's no cost to us for hiring specials. By policy, it's completely on their dime. Thank you. It's completely on their dime with equipment, et cetera. So it's just advantageous. Once we farm out a detail to another community, if we call Lowell or if we call Drake it, they get the fee for the detail. So I think it's important. It's also easier for us to fill the jobs by maintaining, keep them in. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. Any questions from the board?
I have none, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chairman, just to clarify, Chief, you said there's 2 openings currently and 1 in the next fiscal year?
I anticipate 3 openings. There are currently 2 as far as the reserve staff, and there will be an additional 1. But the number has not been a solid number. It's been fluid. I feel comfortable putting on 3 now because of our training schedule. Once we hit summertime, it's more difficult to maintain our field training officers. So we want to get these 3 started relatively quickly. And they all have different competing schedules. They have their own full-time jobs, et cetera. So we're kind of cross-training them all at the same time on different schedules.
Okay, so it doesn't matter, getting the 3 appointments now has nothing to do with the fiscal year?
No.
Okay,
no.
all right, I didn't
No, it
know if you
doesn't.
needed the motion to,
No, I'm looking to get all 3 now, appointed now, and so we can start moving forward with the training with them.
thank you.
Okay. Any further questions? Okay, I'll entertain a motion, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like to make a motion to appoint Christopher Gustafson, Matthew Koziol, and Sean Karen as reserve officers with the Tyngsborough Police Department.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Oppose, abstain, that carries 4-0. Second motion?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to appoint James McPadden as a, I get that right? As a special officer with the Tyngsborough Police Department.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Oppose, abstain, carries 4-0.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chief.
Appreciate the support.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Selectman Lewitt.
Okay, we can move on to new business, item E, right of first refusal for Maple Ridge.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. As I notified the board in the past, Citizens Housing and Planning Association, otherwise known as CHAPA, is the monitoring agent on behalf of Maple Ridge project. Basically, anytime you sell an affordable unit, there is a monitoring agent that handles that sale to ensure that the unit remains affordable. The first step in that path is that the owner of the unit would notify CHAPA. They would work with them on finding out the market or the affordable rate of the unit. Then the next step is to have the town consider whether they want to purchase that unit or not. That's the stage we're at now. In the past, the board has waived their right of first refusal of purchasing that property, as CHAPA has the means and the background to get people that or identify people that can afford, that fit the mold of affordable units, as well as having the sales and the price and handling that as well. Typically, they'll hire a broker to work on that. I know the last time this came before the board, you'd asked about what happened to some of the other units that we'd had before. So I'm working with CHAPA on getting a list put together in regards to the units so we can start tracking those. And I included that in your materials this evening. So I did get an update this morning with CHAPA. They got back to me on a couple of the units. One of them, which is on Shakespeare Street, did close last month, and that remained affordable. The one on Hemingway Road, they're still in the process of marketing, as well as Steinbeck Street. That one belonged to an estate, so it took a little bit longer to get moving forward. And so what we're trying to do is keep track of those, so we can report back anytime we have information pertaining to these or what the status is. We'll have that information, try to maintain that list as we move forward. But this is an up-to-date list so far. We're trying to look back to previous years as well and start to track some of the other units, see where they're standing, and basically keep a running total of the units and sort of a status of how they move through the system and whether they remain affordable, which is our ultimate goal. But before you this evening is the next unit that's listed here, which is identified on Dickens Lane. That's the next one unit, and they're requesting whether the town is interested in purchasing that or maintaining CHAPA and allowing them to move forward through the process and marketing the unit. Be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Administrator. The first one on the list that had a date of 1/29/2015 from Merrimack Landing, the status of that one?
They didn't, CHAPA had said, I had worked with them in the past on the unit, and CHAPA said they had not been identified with the unit owner yet. So many times we'll get people that'll call and ask us what the process is or how they have to do it, and they may not follow through on the process for whatever reason. And so that's what we think happened with this, but we're gonna follow up and try to see if they're still interested in selling, or maybe, they're doing something else as well.
Oh, okay, so we're going to follow. But CHAPA does, they are the monitoring agent for Merrimack Landing as well as Maple Ridge?
I would assume, I asked them, they had said they hadn't been working with the seller, but I'll
Okay.
follow through to make sure.
Right, I think, because I think there's different monitoring.
There is, yes.
Yeah, and I just didn't, off the top of my head, I couldn't recall who the monitoring agent for Merrimack Landing is. But yes, if you could follow, I appreciate you putting the list together, because it's something I think we're interested in keeping a track of, as these units will come forward, I think probably on a regular basis. It'd be great. I mean, I know we're dealing with now that they're being deeded, that they have to remain affordable no matter what. Just a flaw when they first started with these units to not include that in the deed. I'm glad to see that it is included now, so this won't be an issue in the future for the town of Tyngsborough. Questions from the board?
Mr. Chair, so, I mean, follow up there. I know, I questioned before, the paperwork on some of these, in which we were said, the newer affordables, the deed runs with the, the affordable runs with the deed, so they can't be changed, except the other few. And I actually realized a few weeks ago that there was a deal being made for the 10 Shakespeare, which I was happy to hear. I didn't get to see you guys last week, but, it looks like CHAP is doing their job and monitor them and helping, sell them again as affordables. And I guess we need to know the list of these other ones that are deeded in that certain way. That kind of leaves it a little unprotected, because if we're not watching, or CHAP is not watching, we may lose a few along the way. So hopefully we can find out which ones are deeded that certain way, so we can keep an eye on them.
Further questions from the board? So, motion on item, on the first right of refusal.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to make a motion that the board vote to waive the right of first refusal to purchase the affordable unit at number 21 Dickens Lane.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Oppose?
Sorry.
It's okay. Abstain, and that carries 4-0. Thank you. Next, we can move on to 3F, requests for comments on the planning board applications. Mr. Administrator?
Yes, before you, there's a memorandum, that actually, there's 2 planning board applications and 1 zoning board application. The 2 planning board applications, one is to install what's called a radio access network antenna. It's a small, I would say toaster-size unit that would go on top of a utility pole. They're looking to put those in 2 different locations. That's before the planning board. The other is the proposed zoning change, which is also a citizen petition, which is on the warrant as well. The other project is a zoning board of appeals application. Dream Diner is looking to expand, so that they need a variance and a special permit for that. As in the past, I've recommended that the board not take any action on land use petitions.
Thank you. Questions from the board? I'll entertain a motion, please.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that the board take no action on these requests for comment from the planning board and the zoning board of appeals.
Second.
Discussion? Just comment that, again, we want to make sure that we send our response to the planning board. Thank you. All those in favor? Aye. Oppose? Abstain? Okay, and that carries 4-0. Item 3G, order of street layout, acceptance and taking Muscuppick Trail.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. We're at the final step of accepting Muscuppick Trail as a town road. We did go before and have a public hearing with this board back in December, or I think back in November, right before the special town meeting. The board supported accepting Muscuppick Trail as a town road. That went to town meeting. Town meeting approved that as well. So now we're back with the order of taking drafted by our attorney, Charles Zaroulis. That information is attached within your materials. So right now, we're looking for a vote to lay out Muscuppick Trail, and there's a recommended motion there. On a side note, the plan is out to bid. to do the drainage and roadway construction work from Muscuppick Trail. The plans will be available for pickup and viewing in our office on Wednesday. So that process is starting. We hope to start construction probably at sometime in June, and we'll get that moving forward. The plan was to basically get the drainage work done, put down the first course of pavement that would sit one season, and then they would come back in the spring and finish the project off after any roadway settlements take place. And so the plan is moving ahead as planned, and pretty excited about getting that done this summer, or 3/4 of the way done, I should say.
Thank you. Questions from the board? Okay, I'll entertain a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I make a motion that whereas the board, after hearing, laid out Muscuppick Trail as a town way in the town meeting of December 8th, 2015, voted to accept as laid out, move that the board execute the attached order of taking.
Second.
Discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Oppose and abstain, and that carries 4-0.
I have the order with the tab, if you'd like to sign. I'll pass it down, and
Okay. Next, we can move on to old business, and we have Freedom Alley Shooting Sports. Mr. Administrator.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I did have a handout for you this evening, which I passed out to board members. This special permit, we had discussed it and had closed the public hearing a few meetings ago. We brought back the drafted order of special permit with a list of conditions. There was some debate regarding that, specifically around lead exposure. I did work with some of the selectmen. I did work with our attorney and the applicant's attorney, and it was recommended by the applicant's attorney as well as our attorney that the language that they had mentioned before, where the applicant shall comply with all federal and state laws concerning lead as it applies to both adults and children of all ages, was sufficient to cover any and all existing lead laws and regulations. I had gone over whether that, we'd talked about possibly putting in some testing standards or setting up, possibly even holding off on allowing anyone under 18 to use the facility until we established some testing parameters. There was some debate about that. There was some concern about not being able to come up with standards. So it was left as providing the same language that was proposed at the last meeting. I did ask that because we'd put so much debate into the possibility of lead exposure for children, that the owner or the operator would put a sign up at the facility basically stating that there may be some lead exposure due to the ammunition, which was significantly made out of lead. So that was included in the memorandum that was attached as well. But certainly welcome any input from the board. I did, Mr. Zaroulis was not able to make it this evening because he is representing the town of Tewksbury tonight at their annual town meeting. But I did ask him what, if any, vote would be needed this evening. And he had stated that the only vote that would be needed was vote to authorize signature. That was it for in regards to a motion.
Thank you. Questions from the board?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
for the town administrator, the middle of the cover letter here that you provided us, beginning with HVAC shall comply, that's existing in the permit decision. That's the condition that's already in there that was agreed to by the applicant.
Yes.
So the one down below, also number 1, would we need to vote on whether that should be added or not?
Yes.
separate from voting to authorize to sign. So
Correct.
do you need a vote on that one first?
Yes, I mean, if that's the
Okay.
order, yes, that'd probably be, make sense.
And, Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Has the applicant indicated their position on whether or not they would be agreeable to a sign, putting aside for the moment what was on that sign,
Mhm.
but the idea of a sign?
Yes.
So they're agreeable to that?
Agreeable, yes.
Okay. Last piece, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
I'm a little concerned about the second sentence, that the location and the language of the sign would be determined by the board. I don't know if we should be doing that, whether we should be part of that warning or, disclaimer that's provided to customers. I really think that's something that the business owner would be responsible to take care of. If there's ever a question about the adequacy of the warning or the disclosure, I guess I'm concerned about the towns having a hand in that language, as opposed to letting the business owner, who I believe would be ultimately responsible if there's any liability for lead exposure. I don't know if the town would have liability, but I'd rather not risk it by having a hand in, what that sign says. So I don't know if that issue was discussed at all with council or by your office.
I had discussed several options for language in regards to the sign, and it was suggested by council that allowing them to come up with the language that would be on there. So it was not, I don't know if it was discussed in that means, but it was discussed on what the language, would say. And the town council thought he would leave it to the applicant to put what they thought would suffice.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
and with Bill's, I understand what Bill's saying, I mean, is that something we could just strike the last sentence of that? There's two in here, that says the owner/operator shall place a sign on the premises in regards to lead exposure, period, then strike the rest of it.
I believe we can, if we so choose. Yes. Further comments? Okay. Then, according, I agree with your assessment of that last sentence, where the language and location of the sign to be determined by the Board of Selectmen. I agree that should be stricken from that request, and the first sentence should remain. Okay, so we'll entertain a motion.
So, thank you, Mr. Chairman. The first motion will be for the board to approve adding the following sentence as a condition of the existing permit, that the owner-operator shall place a sign at the premises in regards to lead exposure.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Oppose, abstain, and that carries 4-0.
And, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we vote to sign the special permit decision as written, as placed before us this evening with the addition that we just voted on.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Oppose, abstain,
Abstain.
and that carries 3-0-1. Okay, thank you. Let's move on to item B under old business, Lakeview Ave surplus land. Is this Mr. Assistant Administrator?
Believe so.
Okay.
Okay. Again, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I first brought this in front of the board a few weeks ago. This is a piece of surplus property. It was brought to our attention by Mr. Mike Daney, who is an abutter to this property on 3 sides. This is on Lakeview Ave. I'll pull up a map just to make it a little easier here. So this is actually Lakeview Ave running along here. This isn't labeled quite well. So he owns all of these properties, And this square parcel with the little piece jutting out is the current town-owned parcel, and the parcel to the south is the Sherburne property.
Mr. Assistant Administrator, could you put that on, you said there's 3 properties, can you put it on the first parcel?
So the very first parcel is this parcel right here.
Okay, and the second,
The second parcel is this square parcel right here,
and the third?
and that is the third parcel right here.
And it runs along that whole side,
Yes, they
right?
both run, actually, I'll put it up here. It's hard to see on this map, I may have had others on the last slide. These properties all run all the way down the side, the 2 on the outside, and then this one parcel in the middle covers the front there. So the 2 parcels on the outside do run all the way to the end, and again, this is all town-owned properties to the south.
Thank you.
So it's really a parcel in between his 3 parcels that he already owns. The town's not currently receiving any tax revenue from the parcel. The request was sent out to other departments and committees in town. The only committee to respond was the Conservation Commission, and I'll go back to the map quickly. There are actually 2 tax title parcels right next to each other here. The only parcel that the Conservation Commission is interested in is parcel 2639A. That's the triangular parcel. They felt that has a little more use to them and no potential residential, commercial uses, and no one would be interested in that. So they would just like to add that on at a future date, just to increase the amount of conservation land they have in the area. But they were okay with moving forward, the town moving forward to sell this to the current abutter. Happens to only be one person at this point in time. So I've gone back and forth with the applicant and council to come up with this requested motion you'll see below. Basically, I'm recommending at this point that the property be deemed surplus and available for sale, and the following condition will be that the buildings and/or uses which encroach from the properties at Assessor's Map 25, Parcel 51, Lot 0, shall not be extended, increased, altered, or reconstructed in perpetuity. So what that means is, I'll go back to the map here. You'll see in the upper left corner of the town-owned parcel in red, there's actually a barn that sticks out onto the property, and a few other places where these buildings, some of which have been here for many, many years, long before the current owners owned the property, slightly encroach onto this town-owned parcel. One point in history, the person who owned all of these parcels was paying taxes on this, but it wasn't officially in his name, it was in the town's name, so the current abutter would just like to basically clear the air on the property, own it. He's willing to negotiate a fair price with the town if we can come up with a fair price if you'd like to move forward. The property is currently zoned residential, the town-owned parcel. It would remain residential, and he would not be allowed to extend any of his current non-conforming pre-existing uses onto this property any further.
And Mr. Assistant Administrator, then after, if this motion passed, then it would go to town meeting?
Yes.
And the town meeting would authorize whether or not they would want the Board of Selectmen to sell this parcel?
Yes, yep, that's how we have the warrant article worded.
Okay, thank you. Further questions from the board?
Mr. Chair, I think this meeting, a month ago, we talked about the surplus land, so the conditions are, so no future expansion of their pre-existing non-conforming commercial slash, unless, that's the other thing, I mean, they restrict there, but if they decided to develop everything there as residential, would that restrict them on that?
No, it's conceivable that in the future, he may want to make this entirely residential, put just 2 or 3 homes on the property, and then he would be able to use a portion of this parcel for that purpose, conceivably in the future.
So strictly, so it doesn't extend any of the non-conforming use as it is right now?
No, not if you make the motion in this manner, that will be a condition that will be placed on the property as part of the transfer. And you have every right to do that. You could restrict it even further, so no building could ever be placed on the property in perpetuity, but then the town basically won't be able to negotiate a very high price at all. Probably won't be able to negotiate any price at all for it. But you do have that right. Any restriction you'd want to put on, you could.
I mean, future down the road, who knows what they may possibly do if they do obtain a lot. I mean, redeveloping it with all new residential, one thing, to expand the commercial there, as a resident, I wouldn't want to be for it. So that's all I was trying to do, is restrict any expansion of their business over there now.
Right, that's how I currently have the motion worded, and that would be my request, and the applicant is actually okay with it. I've told him we plan on restricting it, so no pre-existing uses could be expanded onto the property, and he's 100% on board with that.
Sounds good.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
so the lots that he currently owns, they're all residential as well?
Yes,
Okay. And so he's got pre-existing non-conforming uses.
From years ago.
So he can, whatever the law allows him to do on those lots would not be restricted.
correct.
In other words, if he could expand in a direction that stays on his own lot, provided he met current zoning, we're not restricting that. It's just if he expands into the piece he's buying. The fact that the back corner of the barn is on the town land isn't gonna be deemed, well, I had a grandfathered existing use. That's
Nope.
what we're looking to
Right,
prevent from happening.
Yep.
Okay. So it's just the expansion into the new parcel,
correct.
as opposed to what he's currently.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
Mhm.
Yes.
Sure.
Yes.
Not exactly what the wording says.
Yeah, that's why I'm asking, so I'm gonna probably tweak that just a little bit.
Sure, please, no, feel free.
Okay. We'll entertain that motion with the change.
Sure. Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that the board declare a parcel of land on Lakeview Avenue taken through tax title on August 1st, 1992, and identified as Assessor's Map 25, Parcel 51, Lot 0, as surplus property and available for disposition with the following condition: that the non-conforming buildings and/or uses which encroach upon the property at Assessor's Map 25, Parcel 51, Lot 0, shall not be extended, increased, altered, or reconstructed onto Assessor's Map 25, Parcel 51, Lot 0, in perpetuity.
Sounds great.
Second that.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Oppose, abstain, and that motion carries 4-0. And thank you, Mr. Assistant Administrator. Next, we have a budget review. Mr. Administrator?
Yes, I just wanted to update the board as we narrow down the budget and reviewing revenues that have been coming in. We did increase the excise tax slightly, the numbers coming in a little bit higher, and felt there was some room to increase that slightly. We did receive, so at the end of March is the open enrollment period for healthcare. So once we have all that finalized, we work with Minuteman Neshoba Health Group on what our costs would be. We had 11 new people that were taking out health insurance. That may have been someone that was on a spouse's plan that changed over. It may have been a newer employee that replaced an existing employee and so forth. But we did have 11 new employees. So the cost had gone up a little bit higher than we expected. So right now, we're working on going through that and identifying how that fits into the budget and making sure that our numbers will fit with that. We did meet with Kerry Colburn-Dion and myself met with the superintendent today to go over that. Also met and discussed this with the police chief as well late last week. So we're going to, and we're gonna have a few more meetings this week to go through to make sure all of our numbers, both on the municipal side and the school side, will accurately reflect a positive budget going forward. So we're getting close to finalizing that number. We expect to have that hopefully by the end of the week. We have also, we're looking at the borrowing piece as well. We were looking to set up long-term borrowing in regards to during this month. Unfortunately, we haven't closed out the school project yet. We believe it's complete. We're making sure that we have all the billing in and what can be charged back for that project, so we have an exact number, so we'll be able to roll that in. So we're looking at just doing a short-term borrowing, which will come up at the board's next meeting. That'll give us some numbers, at least we can settle or put in place for this year's operating budget, with still keeping an eye on permanently borrowing those late summer, once we have final numbers for that, as well as tying into the Old Town Hall project through community preservation. So we're getting as close as we can. We've taken a little bit longer, having an accountant 1 day a week. We're looking at continuing some of the interviewing for that. We're trying to set that up for later this week or beginning of next week to talk some other candidates that have applied as well. So we're still moving forward with that as well. So we're getting close, and hopefully we'll be able to settle the numbers in the next few days.
Okay, thank you. So, action required this evening?
No action on that. It was more of an update.
Okay. Any questions from the board at this time? Oh, okay. We can move on to the warrant. Mr. Administrator?
Yes, thank you. I did pass out the most recent warrant. The board would need to vote and sign that warrant so we could post it tomorrow. The numbers, I'm just going to get a copy out for myself here to follow along. I'm going to say 80% of the warrant is complete. It's been reviewed by Attorney Zaroulis. Really, the only changes to the warrant would be finalizing the numbers relating to the budget. And I can go through the articles and let you know the articles that we're just trying to finalize. And I'll do this in two ways. I'll go through and let you know which articles remain open, which is Article 4, which is compensation of elected officials. As I mentioned in past meetings, I've been speaking to different boards and committees and seeking their input in regards to a stipend. Some boards have asked about returning stipends to what they once were. There were other boards that were not interested at this time in stipends. So I put down the information that was after I had talked to the different boards and committees, all the elected boards and committees, I should say. So that remains open, and we can come back to these articles. I'll just do a kind of a quick synopsis. Article 5 is the general fund budget article. Obviously, that's not ready to be posted yet. Article 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10, and 11 have all those numbers are accurate. The number regarding the transfer to stabilization and transfer funds for other post-employment benefits, those are based on the recommendation from the Capital Asset Committee. What we had was, we had free cash. Part of the free cash policy committee back in 2013 made recommendations for certain percentages to put away. Those are based on that. They're probably higher than what we have done in the past, but we did have, I guess, more free cash this year than we have had in other years, and we also did have a light winter in regards to snow and ice, so that gave us room for to use free cash for capital projects, as well as being able to reserve some of the free cash for a later date. Article 12, we're waiting for the Sewer Commission. They did meet on Thursday, so they're getting close to finalizing the Sewer Enterprise Fund budget. One of those items is that they're waiting for their benefits piece, which we are working with and getting our costs and healthcare and relating that back to them. We also base part of our fixed costs is FICA, or what's based from Middlesex Retirement. So once we have those, we plug that in with them. So it's sort of a three-legged stool. We're all sharing the information and to make sure that we're all on the same page in regard to that information. The Article 13, the Ambulance Enterprise Fund, is good. We did get the numbers for those. That was based on the Board of Fire Engineers. They were working with Kerry in regards to those numbers and what their expected costs will be for next year. Again, this will be their first year, so these are estimated costs, and they may change. We don't expect them to be any higher than they would be. If that was the case, then we would have to come back for a special town meeting to adjust those. But we're working on those expected costs for the Ambulance Enterprise Fund going forward. And again, we can, as part of an enterprise fund, we can run, I don't want to use the word deficit, but we can run sort of setting a dollar amount and basing that on as we get revenues in. So we could be, we set that, we stick to that amount as we get revenues in, those will be adjusted and based on that cost as we get revenues in. So that's something that we can run sort of in the negative as we get the enterprise fund up and running. And that's allowed, is what I mean to say. The Articles 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. Those are all, shouldn't change at all. Those are based on, even though they're financial articles, they're based on figures that we would have already in place. For example, the Article 20 transfer of funds, we know what our payments are going to be for the Greater Lowell Tech. So we have an idea of what that's going to be, as well as the previous debt, which had to do with the Early Childhood Center. So those are already in place, and we know what those costs are. Article 21 is the Community Preservation Fund. We do have a list of projects, and we have those that the Community Preservation voted on, and we have that set cost. The other items that we have to look at is the borrowing piece and debt and interest, and make sure that number is accurate. I believe it may have been done already, I just didn't have that information in time to print this for tonight's meeting. On to the miscellaneous articles. Article 22 was the article we just discussed tonight about the Lakeview Avenue property. I'm not sure if that language needs to change, or that would be sufficient for how the vote was.
I think where it says on terms and conditions as determined by the selectmen,
We should be okay.
sufficient.
Yep. Article 23 is a proposed amendment to the wetland bylaw. Article 24 is the citizen petition, so those would not be changing. That's it for the annual town meeting. We do have 5 articles for the special town meeting. Article 1 is a financial article. It's a transfer of funds. So as we go through looking at the operating budget for FY16, there may be some areas where we have surplus, and there may be some areas where we have deficits. What we try to do is we'll make transfers within each department to cover any costs that would be associated with that. We'd have a list of that that we'd have prepared and ready for special town meeting. Article 2 is the transfer for funds for the town collector's retirement. That was moved from the annual town meeting into the special town meeting. That way, this can be managed in this fiscal year and not waiting till July 1st. This allows us to use existing funds in FY16 to pay that instead of having to budget that going forward for the next year. And then it allows the town collector to get that retirement a few months beforehand and not having to wait till July 1st. Transfer of funds for school Medicaid, that's something that we typically will get that information as part of the free cash. Typically, we would transfer it over to the school fund to help them, and that's for, again, this fiscal year. So that's why it's in a special town meeting. Article 4 shouldn't change. That's some unpaid bills from FY15 that we found out about, and there's 2 of them in regards to advertisements, so we should be able to pay that again in this fiscal year. And then the last piece is the transfer from sewer enterprise. They're going over that now. They're not sure if they'll need that article or not, but we're waiting to hear back from them. So that's kind of a quick summary of that. I did include a list with the board that kind of breaks down or shows all of the articles in a list, and we can go through those as well. The board can either vote to recommend one of the articles, or they could take no action as we get, for example, the general budget. We'd probably take no action or take action at town meeting or sooner if the board wants to meet at a meeting before that. We do have a meeting scheduled for the 16th, which is that Monday before town meeting. So that would be up to the board how they wanted to handle that. But the list, we can take a look at the list and go through that as well, and I can answer questions, and we can, happy to go over each article again to provide more information for the board.
Thank you, Mr. Administrator. I know one thing I think we're all shooting for is that the warrant is available to the residents before town meeting, and also that at town meeting, I know the residents want to know what the recommendation is from the Board of Selectmen and from the Finance Committee. If we were to take a vote the night before with a full board here, could we, I guess the step would be to print our votes and have it available to the residents at town meeting?
Yes, and typically there's a couple information packets that we hand out. One would be any changes. So for example, last year we had a sheet, a green sheet, I believe, was the budget sheet. So that listed, it provided all the information in regards to the budget that was handed out. There's the Finance Committee's recommended report, which we would also hand out at town meeting. So those are at least 2 information packets that we would hand out. We'd like to get it as soon as we can. We'll get it online to make that available as well. But yes, we like to hand out as many recommendations as we can. The Finance Committee is actually meeting now as well. I gave them the similar list of all the articles, and they were going to start going through those to make their recommendations too. And I'll have that by the end of this evening, and I'll start to put that on basically a report that's handed out to the townspeople at town meeting, so they would have that information.
Okay, discussion from the board?
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
That could be a little cumbersome in that we're going to have a sheet of paper for the Board of Selectmen, and then another sheet of paper for the Finance Committee, which might actually not be a sheet of paper, it might be a packet as thick as the town warrant itself. And so, offer that thought. Thank you.
Again, for the recommendations,
Yes.
I was just gonna say, if we do have a PowerPoint to just show the warrant language for each article that we're on, I can put on the bottom of that PowerPoint article how the 2 boards voted, if that's easier, in addition to that too.
Yeah, I think that would be, because if we had a screen with a PowerPoint as we're presenting,
Yeah.
and then it would have the recommendation right there, it would be right in front of the voters. I like that. You look puzzled, Selectman?
I think traditionally, when the warrant is available at the town hall, it usually depicts at least the recommendation of the Board of Selectmen. And what I'm getting right now is that the warrant that's gonna be available at town hall in advance of the town meeting will not have that recommendation.
If the board makes recommendations this evening, I can have those placed on the warrant. The warrant has to be posted tomorrow, so if there's any changes or recommendations the board wants to make this evening, we can certainly, and if the finance committee has recommendations, we can certainly include those on the warrant before it gets posted. But I was looking back at other warrants from previous postings, and typically they didn't have the recommendations on that, but certainly we can do that.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Perhaps there are some articles that the board would feel comfortable recommending without all of our members present tonight, and others that we might want to wait on.
I think that's,
I think there's some that are pretty standard that we usually see every year, and based on prior board meetings, the four of us would feel comfortable recommending.
yeah,
Maybe
we could
take
go,
them that way?
yes, absolutely, I agree. We all in agreement on that?
Yes.
Okay, let's do it.
Mr. Chairman, just
Yes.
one more comment on some of the specific ones. So Article 11, the capital improvement expenditures, there's, just for the board's information, there's a capital asset committee report that's, was voted on at our last capital asset meeting. We tweaked sort of the presentation of the material, so that report's coming.
Yes, I was just
Shortly.
waiting to hear
Yep.
back from if
From
everybody was.
So the free cash was about 1.1 million,
Mhm.
and we voted to spend the 283, which is about 25%. And the other 75% is being put into our two stabilization funds to increase those accounts, to bring them closer to what Department of Revenue recommends for having in those accounts based on the size of our town budget. So those two stabilization funds are moving in a positive direction. That was the question I asked last year. Are we getting better or worse? And
Right.
Selectwoman Pulio said it's getting better. So this year, it continues to get better. On Article 13, the Ambulance Enterprise Fund, Mr. Administrator, there's a 48,722.
I'm sorry, which article is that?
13.
Okay.
48,722
Mhm.
to be included in appropriations from the general fund for indirect costs.
Mhm.
So, does that eventually come back to the
Yes.
general fund from the enterprise fund once they're up and running as well?
Correct.
So
So
that's
what
gonna be a question when people see we're appropriating from general fund. yet
would happen is
the-
we would estimate the cost through, for example, healthcare, FICA, those types of things that we would be paying, retirement benefits. So we would pay those, for example, Middlesex Retirement would send us one bill based on all the employees, so we pay that. And what we do is we take that piece out that would apply to anyone that was associated with the ambulance, an employee. And we do that similar to the sewer enterprise fund too, so that we would take money from that fund and then reimburse the general fund.
So the 48 is to really cover those first 3 to 4 months of operating until the revenues start to come back in. So you have money to pay the
It's-
employees.
No, because that would be, I'm not sure if we would take that in now or later. I think it's, and that's really the treasurer's, she manages the cash flow,
Okay.
what's coming in and what's going out. So I'm not sure if they'll take that out originally and then work from that, or it's just a journal entry that we would have, and we just keep that, and track that as we go.
Thank you.
Okay. Further questions? Shall we go then and see which articles we would feel comfortable recommending? We'll go article by article. Article 1, again, housekeeping article. Article 2, housekeeping article. Article 3, so let's take the We have a motion to recommend Articles 1, 2, and 3.
Mr. Chairman, I move that the board vote to recommend Articles 1, 2, and 3.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Oppose, abstain, and that carries 4-0. Article 4, which is compensation of elected officials as part of the budget.
Mr. Chairman, I would suggest that we hold off on that one.
Okay. Article 5. See if the town will vote to raise and appropriate transfer from available funds such sums of money as they may be necessary to fund town expenses. Again, housekeeping article. Article 6, transfer of funds. It's the Billboard Stabilization Fund, which we do every year. Article 7, again, $5,000 to the Wetland Protection Fund is another yearly transfer. And Article 8 is a transfer of funds to, from our PEG account to pay for our, that department. So we can have a motion on Article 5, 6, 7, and 8.
So,
I'm sorry.
I would leave out as, we'll finalize that number and get that number back to you.
Okay,
but the
so
other ones,
6, 7, and 8.
yes.
Mr. Chairman, I move that the board vote to recommend Articles 6, 7, and 8.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Oppose, abstain, carries 4-0. Article 9, to see if the town will vote to appropriate by transfer a sum of $576,656.06 from free cash to the stabilization fund. And that is in the form of $326,771.77 to the stabilization fund, and then $249,884.29 to the capital asset stabilization fund. And as you were stating earlier, Selectman Gramer, it's a move to increase our stabilization fund, which I think is a wise move for our town.
And the, Mr. Chairman, the Capital Asset Committee, on which Selectman Jackson is a member of, was unanimously in support of, as a committee, unanimously supported the recommendation to the board.
Okay, so, and I should probably have reserved my comment for discussion, so I apologize for that. Article 9, a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move that the board vote to recommend Article 9.
Second.
Discussion? Okay, seeing none, hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Oppose, abstain, and that carries 4-0 to recommend.
And just to add to the board that when we go out to permanently borrow later this summer, I think that increase in our stabilization fund and capital asset stabilization fund will go a long way, because we need to, as part of the borrowing, we'll have them assess our bond rating. So showing them that we're putting more money away into basically rainy day account, it will potentially help us get a better bond rating.
Thank you. So we can move on to Article 10, which is a transfer of funds to transfer the sum of $100,000, $914.81 from free cash to other post-employment benefits library trust fund for $52,860.14, and from the compensated absence fund of $48,054.67. A motion on Article 10.
Mr. Chairman, I move that the board vote to recommend Article 10.
Second.
Discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Oppose, abstain, and that carries 4-0. Article 11 is appropriation of capital improvements for fiscal year 2017, to see if the town will vote to transfer from available funds a sum of $283,522, and that the town be authorized to accept any available grant dollars for the following purposes. And that is, this is our capital improvements for the fire department, portable radios, $24,000. Police department, portable radios, $30,676. Highway department, 3/4-ton truck with plow for $50,000. And these are all up to, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And Selectmen, the town office improvements of $62,846. Information technology, town hall phone system, $21,000. The school department, technology replacement of $50,000, and the school department, a maintenance vehicle of $45,000, for that total of $283,522. And again, those items would be paid for through the capital asset fund and not be financed, which typically some years we have to do. A motion on Article 11.
Mr. Chairman, I move that the board vote to recommend Article 11.
Second.
Discussion.
Mr. Chairman, again, this is the recommendation of the Capital Asset Committee. This is the balance or the remainder of free cash that was not transferred to our stabilization fund. All of these items were on the Capital Asset Committee's plan. These are items that have been on their list for several years. And again, it was unanimous at the Capital Asset Committee to recommend these to the Board of Selectmen.
Thank you. Further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Oppose, abstain, and that carries 4-0. Next, Article 12, we don't have to make a recommendation there. Those numbers are not in. Article 13, the Ambulance Enterprise Fund, which again will have a cost of $372,074, and which will anticipate that same dollar figure being brought in as revenue from the ambulance service. So that will be that is being proposed as a self-funding service. Any motion on Article 13?
Mr. Chairman, I move that the board vote to recommend Article 13.
Second.
Discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Oppose, abstain, and that carries 4-0. Article 14, authorization of the Board of Selectmen regarding contracts in excess of 3 years, to see if the town will vote to authorize the Board of Selectmen to enter into a lease purchase agreement up to 5 years to purchase equipment for the town departments. Said contracts shall be subject to annual appropriations or take any other action relative thereto. So I think it's self-explanatory, Article 14. Do I have a motion on Article 14?
Mr. Chairman, I move that the board vote to recommend Article 14.
Second.
Discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Oppose, abstain, and that carries 4-0. Article 15 is a similar warrant article to authorize the school committee to regarding a transportation contract in excess of 3 years. Again, to see if the town will vote to authorize the school committee to enter into an agreement up to 5 years to provide transportation services for the school department. Said contract shall be subject to annual appropriations or take any other action relative thereto. I think this has been explained as a cost-saving measure to capitalize on better rates for school transportation. And a motion, do we Yeah, it's a school committee article that we will make a recommendation on, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I move that the board vote to recommend Article 15.
Second.
Discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Oppose, abstain, and that carries 4-0. Article 16, authorization of the Board of Selectmen to lease property for a billboard, to see if the town will vote to authorize the Board of Selectmen to enter into any and all necessary agreements and let and/or lease the property for the construction, installation, operation, and maintenance of billboard on such terms and conditions as the Board of Selectmen deem appropriate. Property identified as 120 Westford Road, shown as Assessor's Map 22, Parcel 1-0, containing approximately 14.61 acres of land, zoned Industrial 1, light, recorded in the Middlesex North Registry of Deeds and Book 2652, page 722, or take any other action relative thereto. We discussed this article as well as a potential revenue for leasing to a billboard. We'll see if this article will see if the town will authorize the Board of Selectmen to move forward with that project. You want to entertain a motion on Article 16?
Mr. Chairman, I move that the board vote to recommend Article 16.
Second.
Discussion. All those in favor? Aye. Oppose, abstain, and that carries 4-0. Article 17, housekeeping article to accept Chapter 90 funds from the state. And Article 18, to continue to approve revolving funds, and that would be $10,000 to the Board of Fire Engineers, $50,000 for ambulance programs and materials, Recreation Committee of $120,000, Old Town Hall of $25,000, School Field Use Committee, $50,000, Board of Health, $7,000. The first Board of Health article was for recycling programs and materials. Second Board of Health appropriation would be $40,000 for fees collected from Republic Services and participants. Another Board of Health would be Medicare reimbursements of $6,000, Conservation Commission of $5,000, and Sealer of Weights and Measures, $3,000. So, motions on Articles 17 and 18.
Mr. Chairman, I move that the board vote to recommend Articles 17 and 18.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Oppose, abstain, and that carries 4-0. Article 19, establish a police detail revolving fund. We had a presentation from the police chief on this more than a month ago, to see if the town will vote to establish a traffic police detail revolving fund as authorized by Chapter 44, Subchapter 53E and a half of the Mass General Laws. This fund shall be funded by citations and other traffic violations charged. These funds may be expended without further appropriation for wages and expenses related to traffic and road safety. The Board of Selectmen may expend from this account an amount not to exceed $30,000 for a fiscal year beginning July 1, 2016, or take any action in relation thereto. A motion on Article 19.
Mr. Chairman, I move that the board vote to recommend Article 19.
Second.
Discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Oppose, abstain, and that carries 4-0. Article 20, transfer funds, to see if the town will vote to transfer an amount in fiscal 16 from the stabilization fund for debt and debt assessment, and said funds to be used by the treasurer to be used towards the payment of debt principal and interest for the Early Childhood Center roof, 135 Colburn Road, and the Greater Lowell Technical High School for debt assessment or take any action relative thereto. Transfer is from the stabilization fund for debt and debt assessment of $57,395. Transfer to long-term debt principal of $50,000 and long-term debt interest of $7,395. Second, transfer from the stabilization fund for debt and debt assessment of $69,378, and transfer to technical school assessment for $69,378. Motion on Article 20.
Mr. Chairman, I move that the board vote to recommend Article 20.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Oppose, abstain, and that carries 4-0. Article 21 is appropriation from the Community Preservation Committee Fund to see if the town will vote a sum of money to be appropriated or reserved from estimated annual revenues of the Community Preservation Fund for the fiscal year 2017, which each item to be considered a separate appropriation for the payment of administrative expenses in the Community Preservation Committee debt service, community preservation projects, and all other necessary and proper expenses, or take any other action relative thereto. Article 21 motion?
Mr. Chairman, before I make a motion, is that finalized, or is that going to be filled in with the actual
We have the
figures?
projects that are recommended by the Community Preservation Committee. We do not have the associated other costs, debt, and things like that, which we would add.
Okay, so we need to hold
So we
off.
should skip that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So, Article 22, authorization to sell surplus property, to see if the town will vote to authorize the Board of Selectmen to convey to direct abutters a parcel of land situated on Lakeview Avenue having approximately 1.7 acres of land and shown on Assessor's Map 25, Block 21, Lot 0, and also recorded in the Middlesex North Registry of Deeds, Book 6084, page 347, such land having been determined to be no longer needed or for any municipal purposes upon such terms and condition as determined by the Board of Selectmen, or take any other action relative thereto. Motion on Article 22.
Mr. Chairman, I move that the board vote to recommend Article 22.
Second.
Discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Oppose, abstain, and that carries 4-0. The Article 23, do we need to take a vote on that as the amend to the wetland bylaw? This has
Trying to
been,
think if the board has recommended zoning change. I believe you'd make recommendations on zoning changes. I'm not sure if you'd, how you've left it with wetland bylaw recommendations, if that's something.
by the conservation.
I wouldn't see any harm in the board making a recommendation.
This has
on
been presented and voted on and supported by the Conservation Commission, so the board would just be supporting the Conservation Commission's article, so I think we should possibly vote on it.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
it sounds like it is a move to save the town some money. I can see that some people might feel that a different standard was appropriate. That certainly is presented in the article. I have no objection to supporting this article.
Thank you. So we'll have a motion for Article 23?
Mr. Chairman, I move that the board vote to recommend Article 23.
Second.
Discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Oppose, abstain, and carries 4-0. Citizens petition, we typically do not.
Typically, we'd wait to receive at least
A
feedback
presentation.
or something from.
There'll be a presentation at the annual town meeting.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, I believe there's a public hearing scheduled for the planning
The
board.
planning board's gonna have a hearing, and they do a recommendation to the selectmen
Right.
of their findings, and then therefore, there will be a presentation at town meeting as well.
Very good.
So is that a, excuse me,
I'm sorry.
is that a holding off or a no action at all?
Holding on.
Holding off, okay.
Okay, so we can move to special town meeting warrant. Article 1 is the department transfers. We don't have that figure
Correct.
yet, so we have to hold off on that. The transfer of funds for town collector retirement, to see if the town will vote to transfer from available funds $10,813.62 for the town collector's planned retirement in May 2016, or take any other action thereto. Motion on Article 2.
Mr. Chairman, I move that the board vote to recommend Article 2 of the special town meeting warrant.
Second.
Discussion.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
my memory is that this was voted on at town meeting last year. I'm remembering the sum of $12,000. Is this 10 part of that and implementing that prior vote?
Correct, it's the, that was the number based on the estimated use of vacation, sick time at that time.
It's the same issue?
Correct.
It's the same funds? Okay, thank you.
Further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Oppose, abstain, and that carries 4-0. Transfer of funds from Medicaid, to see if the town will vote to appropriate by transfer from free cash available funds the sum of $139,965.56 to supplement the Tyngsborough school budget for fiscal year 2016, to be expended by the school committee. Said amount represents the reimbursements made through June 30th, 2015 from the municipal Medicaid program for school services provided to eligible residents, or take any other action relative thereto. This is a yearly transfer that we do, and motion on Article 3.
Mr. Chairman, I move that the board recommend Article 3 of special town meeting warrant.
Second.
Discussion. All those in favor? Aye. Oppose, abstain, and that carries 4-0. Article 4, we have to authorize a payment of prior year unpaid bills. And are these two separate bills for, or
Yes.
one bill totaling?
There were two separate bills. The bill, it was a bill with two of the same amounts.
So should we
So-
add the total underneath there? Do you understand?
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll put a total.
You could do that, yep.
Okay, so we have two bills to be paid for fiscal 15 to the Lowell Publishing Company. Both bills are $266.64 for a total of $533.28. Motion on Article 4.
Mr. Chairman, I move that the board vote to recommend Article 4 of the special town meeting warrant.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Oppose, abstain, and that carries 4-0. The enterprise fund, we don't have that number and don't know if it's necessary, so, Mr. Administrator, our next would,
Just quickly, before we moved on, I had just stepped into the Finance Committee meeting quickly, and they had one question just before we've ended tonight. They're wondering if Article 11 should have been a transfer from free cash instead of from available funds. So I know you've already voted on it, but they thought maybe that should be coming from free cash. So they thought just maybe it should be worded like that on the warrant. So if you'd already voted on that, it might be appropriate to revote that with the new wording, if that's how it should be.
I can verify that with
from
the,
we voted from available funds,
I believe that's the current wording on Article 11, yes.
And they think it should be coming from free cash?
That was their recollection.
I can verify that with town council to make sure that that
So, does the,
language is correct.
okay, so does the board have any objections to making sure that, authorizing the town administrator to make sure that that's the proper wording?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
No, in fact, it's part of that free cash that the Capital Asset Committee made a recommendation. It goes with Articles, 9, 10, and 11,
Mm-hmm. Yes.
total to the free cash that we had, so it's all free cash. And Articles 9 and 10 both reference free cash, so maybe it should also, but whatever town council says. Available
Yeah,
funds
it
may
It
be
might
the
be
same
either
thing,
way, right.
Yeah,
Right.
it may just be an
But that's
oversight.
what we're talking about, that's that free cash that was certified for this year,
Okay.
is where that 283
Right.
is.
I don't think that'll have any bearing on our vote.
It's an available fund, free cash.
Yeah.
Just a-
That was the
I think
explanation that was
it
given.
should be consistent, though, so there's no,
Right, it makes sense.
okay. Mr. Administrator, so do we have to take a specific vote on the warrant?
No, you've, actually, I'm trying to think if you actually vote to post the warrant,
Vote to sign and post.
yeah, vote to sign and post, so you would
So-
do that. And I can also, if the board wants, if they prefer, either way, if we can add the recommendations in there. That sounds like the finance committee has done some of their work already. I could add those if the board chooses, and have that ready for signature tomorrow. If the board can get by here, we'll have that signed and then get it out and posted.
Yes.
Quick question, Mr. Chairman, did we vote to place Article 4 last time? Because I know there were.
We voted to place Article
Numbers
4.
weren't there, so did we place it at least?
We placed it, we haven't voted on any of the figures.
Okay. So we don't need those figures finalized, just to place it.
Correct.
Got it.
I
Thank you.
believe there may have been 3 articles that you didn't take any action on, which I did remove. So there are articles that we've dropped since the last time we had met, so.
You have your list of those that are placed and.
Not with me,
No? All
no.
right. Well, if anyone's keeping track, it's Selectman Lambert.
Okay, so we'll have a motion to post and sign the warrant with an up-to-date recommendation of the Board of Selectmen and the Finance Committee.
So moved.
Very good.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, oppose, abstain, and that carries 4-0.
That was to include recommendations?
Yes.
Okay. And I need people to promise me they'll come by tomorrow and sign.
Promise.
So we
Please send me a text
Okay.
right about noon time.
Okay, next we have the citizens and business time. And seeing none, we can move on to correspondence. Sorry.
The finance coordinator is letting me know that we do have the community preservation. If the board wants to add that onto the list, we can put in the correct numbers and have that, if the board wants to take that up.
That'd be good, thank you.
I knew it was being worked on, I didn't know if it was.
Hot off the press.
Just hot off the press. And back up in case you have questions, because it's quite a sizable warrant article.
And that's Article 21.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
And the article is based on
Thank you.
what the CPC voted?
That was my next question. The CPC has voted to recommend,
Yes.
Yes.
and this is what they've agreed to.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Administrator, would you like to give us just a brief review?
I'll give a quick review, and then I'm sure Ms. Colburn-Diane can add
Okay.
some of the other fresh information. The board, the Community Preservation Committee did vote to, well, I'll start off with the reserves. Each, as part of the accepting the Community Preservation Act, you would, the revenues that you would receive in, you have to at least reserve 10% of those revenues for each of the three categories listed here, so historic preservation, affordable housing, and open space. So those would be placed in a, I'm not gonna say a separate account, but be earmarked for those specific types of projects. So each year, you'd put a minimum of 10% of that into those three line items. The appropriations this year that the community preservation had voted for, the typical one, they would do an administrative expenses. That may come up if they need to do a land appraisal, if they have to hire an engineer, an attorney, or somebody that they would use for one of their projects that they're looking at, or try to get additional information to support their works. They would use part of that, or if they actually had someone that was handling the accounts for them and you know, making payments or something. So there's a mixed things that those could be used for. The projects that the Community Committee approved were the Lake Muscuppick Weed Control Program, which they've done in the past. The Flint Pond restoration, so the Flint Pond Study Committee had come before the Board of Selectmen to let them know what they were up to. I believe the board was supportive of the work that that group was doing. There was a proposal to replace a fence behind First Parish Meeting House. So if you had pulled behind that building, there's a stockade fence that's in disrepair. I believe there's some boulders. I believe that would come back to the Board of Selectmen, as it's the Board of Selectmen's property. So there was a proposal to do that. Ultimately, I think the Board of Selectmen would determine what would go there. The Winslow School, there's a proposal to, excuse me, to put some air circulation equipment in there, fans and so forth, to get the air better circulating so that there's not further moisture content remaining in the building, as well as removing some of the carpet. Carpet would typically hold a lot of that moisture, removing that. That's going towards ultimately rehabilitating the Winslow School. So this would be preventive maintenance to keep restoration problems to a minimum. The next item was an artifact display cabinet. So as part of the First Parish Meeting House, we did receive some silver, some artifacts along that. This is to purchase a display cabinet so we can put those artifacts in a cabinet so people can take a look at what the history of Tyngsborough. The next item is the Tyngsborough Housing Authority study. They're looking to get some funding to look on how they can proceed, or look at advocating for more affordable housing within Tyngsborough. So they're looking at hiring a professional to assist the Housing Authority and how they can move forward in improving better opportunities for affordable housing. The other items, the long-term debt. We're looking to pay off the Red Pines project. The Community Preservation Committee had voted for that, to use some of their existing funds to pay that off, as well as the First Parish Meeting House, and as well as to apply some principal to the Old Town Hall building, leaving some of that debt that we would have to go out for long-term debt on Old Town Hall, but basically paying off Red Pines and then the First Parish Meeting House. So that's the first sheet. I was more familiar with that one. If you have questions, Ms. Colburn-Diane can go over the second sheet and how you made some of the determinations for that.
Sure, I'd be glad to. So the second sheet that you have is, the top part of it shows the fund balances that we have now for historic reserves, which is just under $350,000. Open space is $234,000, just under that. Community housing is just under $300,000, and then the undesignated fund balance that we have that can be used for any purpose is just under $1.4 million. So those are the balances of the funds that we're looking to spend the money out of that's in Article 21. The next thing that we had to do was estimate our revenues for next year. So our estimate for revenues right now are about $572,000. It looks like what we could find on, from the CPC Foundation and the state is that the state match distribution right now is set at 19%. It could go a second round, as it has in prior years, but right now all that they're committing to is 19%, so that's what we came up with for the trust fund distribution of $90,000, which is kind of low compared to where we've been in the past. This year it was, our total revenues are well over $600,000, so we're hoping that there'll be at least a second distribution. Sometimes there's a third distribution also. So we're being very conservative because all we know right now is 19%. So we use the projections of $572,000. And then you have to put, as the town administrator stated, 10% of your annual reserves into each of the fund balances, historic, open space, and community housing. So that comes right off the top. And then the appropriations at the bottom for each of the projects are coming from historic reserves, open space, community housing, or the undesignated fund. So you can see where each of the amounts for the budget are coming out of the available funds that we have, and then it shows the year-end balance for next year. So this would be June of 2017, what we're estimating if we spend all those funds. And typically, we don't spend all of them. We don't typically spend everything in the administrative account. But we're planning to spend a good portion of it, which is pay downs on debt or payoffs of debt. So we will have no debt at all on the Red Pine Affordable Housing Project, no debt at all on the First Parish Meeting House that will be owned by the town, and we will have $2 million bond on the Old Town Hall for 10-year payoff. So that's given us an opportunity to bring in our projected debt payments on the Old Town Hall from 20 years to 10 years now. And that will be the only outstanding debt that CPC has.
Does CPC revenue or debt have any effect on the overall town bond rating?
It does, because it's really debt of the town. Sewer is too. Any debt that's outstanding for the town is seen as town debt in general. So we have to put it all together when we're looked at by a rating agency or by people who are bidding on our bonds.
So our healthy community preservation fund and a healthy enterprise fund would enhance our bond rating.
Certainly,
And would
certainly.
you can say that that's what where we are at
I
today?
think that we're heading that way because we're going to have a reasonable amount of debt for what comes in for revenues for CPC. We'll be paying off a lot of debt that could have been out there. I think they're doing a very prudent thing by paying off those affordable housing and First Parish Meeting House bonds. And their revenues are still pretty strong, and hopefully the state match will come in higher. But they've got a good revenue stream, and they can have more projects coming in.
And then with the sewer enterprise fund, with the betterments that they're using to finance that extension project, that should be looked on as favorable for the town as well?
I think it will be. It's still debt of the town no matter what. If the people have a betterment default and don't pay, then certainly we place a lien on their property. But I think it will help because you know that there's an external revenue source for the repayments through the betterments, and it's not just town money.
Thank you. Questions from the board? So this is again Article 21. So, who would like to make a motion on Article 21?
Mr. Chairman, I move that the board vote to recommend Article 21 with the financial breakdown presented by our town treasurer this evening.
Second?
Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, oppose, abstain, and that carries 4-0. Thank you very much. Okay. So now we can move on to correspondence. Thank you. Here's your signed.
Okay.
So in our packet, we have, I'll make a motion that we receive the correspondence in our packet from, from Representative Gary on Chapter 90 funds, from the Mass Municipal Directory information, from Smoky Bones, the gross revenues, gross sales percentage, I'm sorry, from the school committee, agenda for Tuesday, May 3rd, from Comcast, financial balance sheet, and from Greater Lowell Workforce, annual report. Also, this evening, we received in our packet two letters from the mid-managers, SEIU, local 888. So two pieces of correspondence from the mid-managers union.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
plus two financial documents provided by
Thank you.
Financial Director.
Yes. Thank you. So,
I was just, one thing, Mr. Chair, the other two correspondence from earlier, looks like the town's date and stamp is full on, we'll say, the temporary assistance, but the other one's not, it's not stamping here. I know when you bring in stuff in the record, you want to have that time, date stamp. I mean, it's, I don't know how it could be missed, because it's slid in one way.
yeah,
Right, so just, I guess, look at that when you're time stamping stuff coming in.
okay.
Other than that, I'll second.
Further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Oppose, abstain? That carries 4-0. Next, we can move on to review of weekly warrants.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have two for today, May 2nd. One is payroll, which is the amount of $843,609.39. And the second is the vendor payment for $841,781.92.
Thank you. If we can move on to the town administrator's report.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to update the board a little bit on what Steve Brogan, our media director, has been up to. I asked him to put together a list of some of the activities that he's been working on in the 45 days or so that he's been on board with the town. And he gave me a list, and I'll sort of read through this. He separated two Verizon feeds so that now we can now program them independently, meaning that the two channels will have different programming. He updated all the bulletin board slides with current information, including upcoming election, town meeting, and the candidates' night information, and also has solicited information from other town departments to get more information up there. He's added a music player that plays during the bulletin boards on all channels as well. He's working on a scheduled meeting the PEG industry professionals and have completed his site visits to all locations in regards to a studio. And I've asked him that's something that he may, if he was ready, that we would come before the Board of Selectmen meeting, the next meeting, just to update the board on what he's been doing in regards to that, so we can get some feedback from the Board of Selectmen. The other one is that he reconfigured all the broadcast and meeting coverage equipment to improve the ease or use of access and removed dead and unused pieces and eliminated unnecessary redundancies, taking on more electrical usage. Then he imported some various programs, some other local access stations and public domain to broadcast on the Tyngsborough Public Channel. Subjects like his cooking shows, public affairs, veterans programs, music and historical documents, TED Talks, cartoons and some other program. And then this year, we worked together, Steve and myself and as well as Matt, on trying to put together a more accurate budget moving forward. Now that we use the general fund as we transfer some of the PEG funds into the general fund, we need a budget to be set up so that we know exactly what the funding is being used for. So we worked a little bit, spent a little bit more time doing that, working on that, and getting that together, since it was really, there was a smaller budget put forward last year, and that was sort of a first go-around, but this is a little bit more serious, I guess I should say, where they're looking to change some of the equipment out and looking to move forward with a studio and get moving, so we did that as well. But I just wanted to update the board on some of the activity that Steve Brogan has been working on in regards to the media. So we're looking for some real good improvements in the access in those channels. That's it for tonight.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for the administrator? Just an update for on the meeting house, where we are at with the RFPs.
Yep. So for the First Parish Meeting House, the sub-bids are due on Wednesday. So that's when you do painting and I believe roofing, those would require a sub-bid. So those bids would be due on Wednesday, then 2 weeks from there, we would have the general contractor bids too. So within about 14 to 16 days, we should have all the pieces in place. We'll start to review the submissions and hopefully turn that around as soon as we can and get somebody on board to start working with the First Parish Meeting House. I did talk to some people that were renting Old Town Hall in June and said the building's not going to look as pretty as it would in the fall because it'll be most likely covered and being de-leaded. But hopefully people looking to rent Old Town Hall in the fall will have a nice, beautiful building that's been on the way to being restored and painted and looking a lot better, which we'll be pretty excited to do.
Yes, agreed. Okay. Selectmen's reports.
I have none, sir.
Have done.
All set?
And I'll make one announcement. There's candidates night tomorrow night. Is that right? 7 o'clock?
7 o'clock?
In this room, 25 Bryant's Lane. So they'll be hosted by the Lowell Sun
Yes,
and broadcast live,
yes.
starting at 7 o'clock tomorrow night. We have no executive session tonight. Again, we have coming up, we have elections on May 10th, Tuesday, May 10th, and we have our next selectmen's meeting will be May 16th, and then the annual town meeting will be Tuesday, May 17th. So a lot coming up in the town of Tyngsborough, so please, as we always do, encourage you to attend the annual town meeting and obviously attend you to vote on Tuesday, May 10th. So I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? And that carries 4-0. Good night. Thank you.